Sexual fantasy, idea or be a wibby. So your boy, bema. There are certain sexual fantasies beyond my or you fantasize about. It doesn't matter as I sexually active and as I won't have a sex that. Oh yes, that is also a sexual fantasies. Share. Now when we start nipping on the talk with Jumana, he acts as if say when it comes to sex, it's the most ugliest and the most terrible thing ever. When you get to know his sexual fantasies or one more fantasizing about her, hey, it go over you. You can sexual fantasies, hey? Fantasy basically, you say, you are imagine yourself in some pleasurable situations. You are imagine yourself doing certain beautiful, amazing things. But most of the time, when fantasies are yet having, they are almost impossible. And I said they are completely impossible to ever achieve them in real life. But when it comes to the imaginative world, everything is possible until you are free to fantasize about anything. And I'm a boy. Oh yes. Charlie, this is your girl Akio Duba, and Charlie, today we will be talking about 10 common sexual fantasies of men. And so on with but anybody remember they no come. So I want you to subscribe to my YouTube channel and hit the notification button. I talk about sex and reproductive health. About sex, anything that has to do about sex, the good part, the bad part, the sweet part of it, the terrible, the ugly, educative part. Baby, for sex, we are challenging because when we are doing it, we need to do it the right way, right? Now, I also talk about reproductive health. Remember some tidbits about reproductive health. Normal, you are doing wrong. Normal, you are doing right. And so, and I say, so yeah. Now, boy, improve your reproductive health and so as well. So let's just get started, right? Okay. Now, you look at 10 common sexual fantasies and Bema have it. Meaning that there are more than 10. There are plenty actually, but these are the common ones and Bema be like you relate to. So what I say. Now the first somebody who come on, is something we call role play. Yes, you can role play. Okay, I quite said drama. We play with you. Say a player. You could be anything. If you're in real life, no, you're nest. But in a play and I say in a drama, no. If it's like you're a teacher, or you're a judge, or you're a lawyer, you are anything. Into about role play now. Bema fantasize say you're no Bema, or better say schoolboy. Now the rest of them say schoolgirl. Now, where's the schoolboy, schoolgirl, almost shall be no more real. You also can fantasize, say, oh, yeah, nurse, and I saw a judge be a judge in a day or be a banning chain, so on judging the case. But when say, oh, judge case, and I say, dear, man, and she swab so, and so. But I believe, say, about role play, there is something nice that should be experienced, right? I mean, it spices things up in the bedroom. So it shouldn't just be a fantasy. Experience it. I'm sure someone can share them one. Now the second sexual fantasy I remember baby have it. Bro, for remember the makope. Voyeuristic pleasures. You can voyeuristic pleasures are basically the man fantasizes and I say he imagines himself in his room. But be in the window share about on who the next neighbor them. I'll buy your fear juma banaway naked. And if you wash you buy rad them no naked. Maybe you're buying so me and Honia the other. Now be make sure only them no view without the lady's knowledge. It's a fantasy never be below. Such as always sure ban and I say you're banning a boyfriend be and a man me share them no me who be a being naughty. No shany them no shany free. Our money so be sure. Some guys sit down and fantasize about ever experiencing this. Hey cool. Now the third sexual fantasy I remember baby have it a threesome. I actually believe that threesome is the most common sexual fantasy and Bema baby wo. Threesome nene search is one Bema no nyamba you share them hey double pleasure. Wait channel. All share way shape no share way dear. Coca-Cola dear multi shape in another than peso. Just worry kakra. Charlie, that's one of the most sweetest fantasies men always fantasize about. And a lot of guys actually go ahead to achieve it. And people are also there to forever remain a fantasy because they really can't see themselves doing it in the real life. But about threesome, pattern not to when you the fantasy, no. Now the next sexual fantasy Rebecca wants them is some guys want to be dominated in bed. Yes. Now fantasy when a time comma and when it comes to the real world, they are bosses. They like to dominate in the office. In wherever they like to be to dominate there, but when it gets to the bedroom, they want to be dominated. Almost our boss no bedroom, no be a show, no be a gun, yeah. The bedroom match say or person and I send a partner. In fact, over the Western world, that you want buy be a form of dominatrix, meaning say Ghana he be wahadia. Among them, we said they help men achieve sexual pleasure through pain. The more ship any other materials and I say instruments are yeah the punishing bearman. So the born and a bearman of Philippine quite white sakwalawo or banning him, I say or a boy or banning him. And so you moon no sexual pleasure. See on be on my be fear a bad dem dear or person in control no. And you didn't mention the onye, that is onion uncle to the madam. Do office dear. On a watches for your boss or obviously fantasy no. Hey, now the next sexual fantasy I'm baby have it. Hey, ladies who are off their limit. They want to have sex with ladies who are off their limits. They imagine having sex with such ladies. It could be saying a sister, being a best friend. And on a bear man, and a best friend, and that's so quick we money see you or buy beaches will be a strong. Do her no matter say she's so elegant, so classic. But you know for a fact that you can never go near such a lady. Some guys do fantasize about ever having sex with such ladies. There's one in the area and then the best friends of one of my Timono, one year more banner, and more banner will come on my naming ceremony. Oh, yes. But you know, this fantasies don't. He said there is no way he can ever achieve them. But just fantasizing or imagine them in his head and actually give him some kind of sexual pleasure. It makes him feel good about himself. So the team they worry about you. Oh yes, indeed, a lot of men they fantasize about ladies that they know that they can never have them. But it's why yo. Now the next sexual fantasy. For some reason, quite common among men. Anal sex. Anal sex, yes. Sometimes what I have to say about being more soon, I'm my partner, yet I have vaginal sex. But all of a sudden, my partner is say, if they up anal sex. And the one of baby, so he's gay. Or he's gay, you know, he actually say he's gay. Sometimes he's not, and yes, or a gay. He just wants to experience it. It's his fantasy. Say him how can I say then and she wants to be saying. So he wants to see how it feels like to have sex with the woman now or be fun one at all. Not because he is gay, but that's his fantasy. Into what one him say he can't do it in the real world because the past an empty. Into what one so imagine when it him say, hey, na ya twipa, not to say, or imagine when it him say he wants to have anal sex. It doesn't mean he's gay. Okay? Maybe more fantasy no. Now the next sexual fantasy. Me cry me tell one and say, they want to have sex with strangers. Okay, I'm not even surprised about this. And me might be we she tank one and come and we share baby. A band who no say a bra manager or bra. Me pe what you could na me nkware. No man na kufi no akware no. Or we ni we are on beside the onge number no ba ne ko. Be man so ko ni fie. Oh yes, they sometimes fantasize about having sex with strangers. Ah, so we are will be a corny place, no strings attached. And if not let your best friend with the D, what that means you can't you don't love me again. Baby say anyhow. They have sex, they go their way. So remember, be so fantasy, and that fantasy, a lot of guys actually go ahead to have it. Now the next sexual fantasy, which is something that is very common, but it's something like a coded something. Something called swingling, and I say multiple sex. And in this case, it's like two couples, okay, exchange their partners and have sex. Can you imagine? See, me me kunu, na me kunu no so na that friend na swapping. But the funny thing when it comes to this, in as much as Bem and just had it, or no person always had the other parts in the other couple no you or person or but on person have couple Bem and the berry on a year. So I say, on the only bomb being rented. But it's a very interesting kind of saying fantasy. But it actually happens. People actually advertise. Say maybe they are a couple, they want one lady, they want one guy to join them so that they have sex. And see, idea and memory to fantasize about it. In this case, in the partner they are aware, the partner not giving the consent to it. No more. Yes, you're this, See, he wish said that she be or be your opportunity be say, no very or baba, and also very rich as on be having group sex, almost swap away the can wait, obviously the fantasy, Now the next fantasy very won't come some men want to have sex at exotic places. The fantasy and then man kwa ne penyo ma shepe and your man is oh yes. Mbema bi wo so almost they are tired of bedroom yard. Oh one more fantasize say or some beach and you na breeze bi bo na jomo hyeso kind of saying seashore honom if you must fantasy say some resort some holiday kind of saying resort be, some hotel be, some nice place be on top of some mountain be, just some nice place. I just want to say yes. Oh, fair. Oh, yeah, come on. Oh, nice is one also. Ben baby so fantastic no. And your bedroom quite no pill. I'm not so perfect. Or yeah. Now another fantasy. I think that's the 10th fantasy. I remember baby having is to have sex with a virgin. So on be upon the first. The opener. Hey, Charlie, on the man of the say, we will let you know. I'm men, I'm a real first, so men, I'm be a porno. That kind of bragging rights, it's a fantasy a lot of guys want, and they will say everything and anything to achieve this fantasy. Or Becca or don't say much or beya, no, I know. So it's on the first to chew here. And so they can say, yes, I am the guy. And this is a very common fantasy, and men, my baby have it, and they get to experience it as well. So these are some of the common sexual fantasies and men baby have it. Now the thing when it comes to sexual fantasies, no matter the fantasy you have, it's cool. I mean, there's nothing wrong with it. But if you realize that your fantasy is a forbidden type of fantasy, fantasy obia etia ebe shocking, and I say it's so gross, it's so wrong, and you have this kind of fantasy. And you actually want to experience it, like to say, son, about miss a fantasy with you. Ope say, well, yeah, you need to see psychological help because Charlie, yeah, and your hobby breeding, ebeba. And this fantasy, they Charlie seek help. But if that's not the case, not so fantasy, these normal fantasies are a kind of ancient of how beyond body, Charlie. Experience. I mean, have fun in your head. Have fun in your head, okay? Just say, do anyone with him. I mean, nobody's going to do anything to you or anything of that sort. Imaginative world in there is big, right? So these are the common sexual fantasies. If you've ever heard of any fantasy, if you've ever experienced yourself, like someone want to experience any sexual fantasy, yeah, leave it at the comment section. Let's discuss it. Let's talk about how it went, and I say how crazy your sexual fantasy is. But until we meet again, Charlie, stay safe and don't do what I wouldn't do because Charlie, I am good.